So what exactly are we searching for in here?
We're looking for a mysterious device that supposedly can decode the information recorded on this ancient tablet. Aha! That must be it!
Oh, just when I thought you'd forgotten we were supposed to do a part 2.
If you recall, we left off in 1989 with these 3 main topics, and these each lead us directly into the 90s. Let's start with animation in LEGO commercials. The early 90s saw more fully animated pirate commercials hailing from Japan. We previously looked at a commercial by Aardman with large brick-built characters, and this style continued to be used for a couple of commercials in 1990, advertising the LEGO themes Airport and M-Tron. A train commercial from 91 is also said to be by Aardman, and is a definite highlight.
If it doesn't slow down, it's going to crash.
The most substantial animated LEGO promotional material comes in the form of 3 short films from 1990 that would have played in display units in stores. These films are nicely animated and lit, and feature impressively large settings. Their average length is about 2 minutes each, and they advertise the LEGO themes Town Airport, Space Police, and M-Tron. The decade also saw multiple VHS releases of the 1980s LEGO sport films across the US, Canada, and Europe, under a different title each time. It's worth remembering that stop motion in 90s LEGO commercials is still exceedingly rare, as the vast majority of commercials are live action. The small amount of animated ones I have found are sourced from all over the world, with one country notably absent. But the less said about America, the better.
He's cool. He's Jack. The Lego Maniac.
As the decade progressed, the predominant form of animation in LEGO commercials became rudimentary CGI, which should come as no surprise given the trends at the time. A major exception is a number of Japanese commercials from 1999, created in stop motion. Now, back to the beginning of the 90s, and on to the influence of the Magic Portal. As the Magic Portal could sometimes be seen on TV and at film festivals in Australia, it inspired some other Australians to create their own LEGO animation. In 1990, 2 Australians created Star LEGO, listing the Magic Portal as their direct inspiration. This is a recreation of the opening scene of Star Wars, with some humorous twists added. Official Star Wars LEGO was still a long way off, so they had to get creative with the character designs.
Did you hear that? They shut down the main reactor. We'll be destroyed for sure.
Star LEGO is far ahead of its time, as it was shot using a computer and a frame capture card. The creators wrote their own custom frame capture software and would play back their animation while recording it to VHS. Star LEGO was shown at Australian sci-fi conventions, and it is said that a guest speaker from Industrial Light and Magic took a copy to show George Lucas. Another Australian brick film directly influenced by the Magic Portal is The Parasite, shot between 93 and 94. This is one of the standout brick films of the 90s, featuring a distinctive visual style, an eerie original soundtrack, and enormous sets and scenarios. In fact, the sets are far more expansive than what we usually see today. Both of those films are among the most technically accomplished of the 90s, so it is important to remember what would have been a more typical look of the time. By the 90s, film cameras were much less commonly used, as VHS cameras and other tape formats grew in popularity. As you might imagine, the use of computers in general was highly uncommon. The most common method used to achieve animation on tape was to start the recording and quickly stop it, meaning each frame was a brief video clip. This was an intuitive method, but had the downside of inconsistent and low frames per second. There was also a rise in fully live-action brick films, usually featuring the LEGO being moved with strings, but sometimes simply by hand, or even not at all. Films made using these rudimentary techniques don't look like much today, and mostly only remain interesting in a historical context. For a film made like this to hold up today, it would have to greatly excel in non-visual areas. This brings us to our next topic, brick films by Andy Boyer and Dave Lennie. Previously, we looked at their 1989 film Oh Well, featuring the characters Biff and Mario.
We had quite an adventure, didn't we, my friend who is called Biff Feedback?
Why, yes we did, Mario Stradivarius. What did we learn?
Those were really done in the kind of the dark ages in terms of the technical part of it. Those were shot on VHS tape. And we would just start and stop it, and it didn't go as soon as you press the button, so we had to kind of learn the rhythm of like how long to leave it running to get a short amount laid down on the tape. And we would shoot it first and then dub the audio in over the top of that later. So part of the challenge with that was like leaving enough room for the dialogue, because sometimes you didn't know how long something was going to be until after you shot it, because that was all done in camera, and then you're leaving big space. I mean, Oh Well is horrible because the dialogue is so separated, and way too much time is left in there.
As if.
Boyer and Lennie went on to create multiple brick films in the 90s, including 2 half-hour epics starring Biff and Mario. The first of these, T.E. from 1990, is more like 2 films in one, featuring 2 different main adventures. Though it starts off slow, it benefits from quicker editing than Oh Well.
Yes, but we have this cool spaceship. I call her Lisa.
Well, let's go.
We had the camcorder that we shot it on, and that had an audio dub feature, and when you did that, it replaced all of the audio. So we would do the dialogue first, and then we would come back, and we had a VCR that had an audio dub feature that only recorded the right channel. So it would leave half of the dialogue intact, and then we would lay down music and some sound effects and things like that. Now, we only had that one track, so when we laid that stuff down, if we wanted to have music and sound effects, then we had to have those things ready to go in that pass and kind of do it live.
Can you do a smooth edit? Like where
The only thing I'm thinking is that we could use my box, which is fairly accurate pause, and then edit that in on the tape, and then put the cassette tape in and edit that onto the videotape. Understand?
I have no idea what you just said.
No, okay.
No idea.
And essentially, the way we worked, we were using the master copy of the tape. So if something went wrong, if the VCR decided to eat it or something, then we were damaging our only copy of it.
Heart of Darkness from 1995 has got to be one of the most bizarre brick films ever, with a large number of strange subplots and an even larger number of incest jokes.
Jessica is your sister.
No!
Yes.
No to Leo!
That one we actually used professional controlled copying is all it was. So you had your master tape and you would lay that stuff down, and the dialogue on that is a lot tighter because we were able to kind of lay it down exactly where we wanted it to go, and it was very accurate.
I feel we are in danger.
Oh, don't be silly. We're not.
Though the animation in these films is less like frames per second and more like seconds per frame, if you are willing to look past that, you will find some of the funniest writing and voice acting ever committed to LEGO animation, if you ask me.
Mario, I am leaving everything to you in my will.
Thanks, Winston. That is nice.
I hope you don't murder me tonight just to get your hands on it. Ha ha ha.
I wouldn't do that. I couldn't kill anyone. Although yesterday I did cut off several people's heads.
Dave Lennie and Andy Boyer were among the first people to approach brick filming as a long-term hobby rather than a short-lived experiment, and among the first to create a recurring series, with Biff and Mario continuing until 2004.
What?
Another such person, Bruce Thomas, made a series of live-action brick films in the early 90s called Mr. Charlie. In more recent years, he and his son continued the series, meaning that even if it is little known, It has its place in history as the longest-running brick film series, spanning 25 years.
Wow, we've covered a lot. How close are we to the end?
Next, it's time to talk about a brick film from 1991.
One of the earliest professional brick films not created for LEGO is a music video to the song Zap by a band called Ether Real. It is also one of the earliest to receive a wide public release, as it was shown on music channels such as MTV. This is easily one of the most technically accomplished brick films up to this point, and features scenery and use of color that still stand out. The director stated that the LEGO Group were unhappy and threatened legal action, although they didn't follow up on this. Zap had the budget to be shot on 35mm film, which explains why it is in such good quality. It is one of the small number of 90s brick films shot on film, and any others were most often shot on Super 8, including the aforementioned The Parasite. While most of the others are low-key affairs, another standout film shot on Super 8 is The Warp and The Weft from 1994, which follows a Duplo train traveling around real-life locations in Scotland. The small number of later brick films shot on film are outliers, as tape formats were standard by this point. A major benefit of tape was easier capability to include audio. Many people hadn't figured out a method for editing, meaning many animated films required the animation to stop while dialogue or other audio was delivered during a video recording.
I think so. It's good that we came into the forest.
Another standout brick film of the 90s is Fast Forward, featuring car chase action and impressive practical effects. It is said that this 4-minute film actually took up 30 minutes on tape, and was required to be viewed using a video player's fast forward mode.
This would presumably mean that the film had to have originally been silent, with the sound it currently has being added at a later date. Fast Forward eventually received an even more impressive sequel in 2002, which ramped the qualities of the original up to truly epic proportions.
Air support has arrived.
From 2012 to 2014, production updates on a third Fast Forward were being posted, and if the sequel ever does get released, it will make Fast Forward one of the longest running series in brick filming. In the 90s, editing video in the home was still in its infancy, and often required a greater hardware setup than what was readily available to most people. A common method of the time required the use of 2 VCRs. A film that is years ahead of its time in terms of editing is Star Trek: The LEGO Generation, which was created using a Macintosh Centris AV in 1994.
We like to kill.
This film features early use of digital effects such as chroma keying, and possibly the earliest use of digital mouth animation in a brick film. The use of computers increased as the 90s progressed, and there even began to be early experiments with CG brick filming. Even so, any use of computers for brick filming was still uncommon, as most brick films from this time were still by kids playing around with a camcorder.
A very small handful of young people who were experimenting with rudimentary LEGO filmmaking at this time would later go on to become quite notable brick filmers, and some of them would even eventually create brick films commissioned by the LEGO Group.
Particularly in the late 90s, some cameras began to include animation modes, allowing for consistent frame rates of about 4 or sometimes 8 frames per second by filming in brief set intervals. Some people began to figure out other setups for brick filming, such as using animation software that was included with the Game Boy camera.
Wait a minute, who made this?
Moving on.
Come on, we gotta stop Mickey and Mel.
Some more people began to see the potential of using LEGO animation to create more substantial short films which they could then enter into film festivals. One of a number of 1999 brick films by Greg Perry became a grand prize winner in an official LEGO Home Video contest in 2000. The first installment of Rick and Steve, the happiest gay couple in all the world, debuted at a festival in 1999 where it won an audience award, and this series would go on to see great success in the festival circuit in the beginning of the 2000s before attracting the legal ire of the LEGO Group, But that's a story for a different time. One late 90s brick film that would go on to be considered a classic by the brick filming community is 12 Bucks by Rob Waitcher. This is the last of 3 brick films created by Waitcher in 1998, and is his most substantial and accomplished, featuring lighting and cinematography years ahead of its time. It was shared online at the beginning of the 2000s, and became a firm favorite early on within the brick filming community, noted for the overall mood it created with its visuals, music, narration, and unfolding darkly comedic storyline. It was a noted influence on a number of brick filmers who would go on to create later classics that are rich in tone, such as...
What the hell? Get out of your car with your hands up.
I don't really like going to that part of town, but in this business, it's often a necessity. I'm here to see Crowbar.
Well, I really had no idea there was so much good stuff from the 90s. So I guess I'll be going now.
No, wait! We haven't talked about the stuff that was online in the 90s. Though few and far between, it is possible to find discussions of brick filming from the old online discussion system Usenet in the news group rec.toys.lego. Dating as far back as 1994, you can find evidence of people independently coming up with the concept of brick filming and discussing its feasibility. Video sharing online was almost non-existent at this point, so most of the people dabbling with brick filming never displayed their work. A handful did share brief animations in forms such as animated GIFs or very brief and small video files. A very small number of people discussing brick filming online at this time would go on to become community members at the start of the 2000s. People were also discussing a novel concept that would later become known as a webcam. Before the product was bought out by Logitech, a company called Connectix were releasing their first line of widely available webcams called QuickCams. The first QuickCam was released in 1994 and could only capture in black and white. Connectix sometimes used stop-motion videos to demonstrate their camera's capabilities at trade shows and on CDs included with the cameras, and this even included the use of Lego animation. The QuickCam would go on to become hugely important to brick filming, as Logitech were hired to create the camera included with the LEGO Studios Movie Maker set, and the QuickCam Pro 4000 and later Pro 9000 were the ubiquitous cameras used within the brick filming community in the mid-2000s and late 2000s, respectively. The most likely first brick film shared online is The Funhouse by Seth Kaufman. This is a film that was originally created in 1992, and it is extremely substantial for its time, featuring impressive set design and ambitious animation and scenarios. This film was first uploaded to an old type of shared network known as a bulletin board system in 1993, and people who acquired it from here later spread it to the wider internet.
For a full brick film to be shared online this early is truly an exceptional rarity, and I have not found evidence of further brick films being shared until a number of years later.
The next brick film I have found to have been shared online is The Western Ripoff from 1996. This is a film that was created by the LEGO Group to tie in with the 1996 LEGO Western theme. It was available for download from LEGO.com as a screensaver file, with a file size of 1 megabyte. Despite being distributed as a screensaver, this is structured as a film, with a title card and plot. This film has a much different look to the average brick film, as it uses digitized photographs of LEGO to create sprite-based animation. It is possible that by the late 90s, there were some brick films being shared online on personal websites, for which the evidence can no longer be found. The earliest known amateur brick films shared on a major website are multiple brick films by Colin Williamson. Williamson created numerous short and carnage-filled brick films in 1995 and 1998, and when he shared them with his co-workers at PC Gamer magazine, the films ended up being made available for download from the PC Gamer website in 1998. The two longest films featured an amusing character named Corporal Dan, who fights crime using excessive violence while talking trash the entire time. PC Gamer staff became fans of Corporal Dan, and Williamson was given $100 to create an all-new film starring the character. The 10-minute-long Corporal Dan, Revelations, received some hype on the PC Gamer website prior to its release, and is likely the first brick film to be preceded by a trailer. The film was released online in early 1999, with a choice between downloading it in one part or split into 7 different parts, just in case a 10-megabyte file was too much for your dial-up internet to handle. The film was also included on a disc given away with an issue of PC Gamer magazine.
Hey, a bigger vehicle! That's even better! Come on, look out! You're in my parking space! One reserved for Corporal Dan!
While still exceptional, the number of brick films being shared online was slowly increasing in 1999. The aforementioned Star Lego was first made available in March. Later in the year, the duo Kelly Jeffrey and Russ Gattrell began releasing Star Wars brick films using the then-new first wave of Star Wars Lego. The most notable brick film of theirs is Salt Lake Spaceport, a 13-minute film that combines elements of the original Star Wars with Eyes Wide Shut. In November 1999, Kelly Jeffrey and another brick filmer, Russ Jensen, had the idea to attempt to create a directory that people could submit their Lego animations to, which they called Lego Compulsion. This site appears to have received little to no promotion or use, and soon disappeared.
And then, everything changed in the year 2000. But I guess we'll save that for part 3. And part 4.
At this rate, we'll be doing this for years.